The elders say that every river remembers. Its waters may appear calm, its ripples playful, its currents steady, but beneath that glimmer lies an unbroken memory, stretching far beyond the years of mortals. The river that wound its way through the village of Umuahia was no exception. Children played on its banks, fishermen cast their nets into its depths, and women washed clothes on its rocky edges. But all of them knew the river was more than water. It was alive, it was listening, and it was watching. At the center of this tale was a woman named Nneka. To the people of the village, she was known for her beauty and her strange solitude. She lived on the edge of the community, in a small hut with a thatched roof that leaned as if weary from years of secrets. Nneka was not old, nor was she young. Her face carried the agelessness of someone touched by mysteries few dared to question. Children whispered that she spoke to herself at night, her voice mingling with the song of the river. Farmers swore that they saw her walking under the full moon, her white wrapper trailing in the mud, as if she were in conversation with unseen spirits. But no one truly knew her, and perhaps that was why she became such a fascination. The river itself seemed bound to her. Whenever Nneka walked its banks, the water swirled oddly, as though bowing in recognition. Her clay pots never broke, even when filled to the brim. The fish leapt eagerly into her basket without struggle, as if volunteering themselves. These small wonders both intrigued and frightened the villagers. The elders often muttered, "The river does not bless without reason. There is something hidden in her shadow." Yet, no one dared ask her directly. It was not until the festival of Akani River, when the community gathered to honor the gods of the waters, that suspicion began to harden into fear. On that night, drums thundered across the village. Flames from the sacred torches reflected on the river's surface, making it look as though fire danced upon the waves. The people brought offerings of yam, palm wine, and kola nut, laying them gently on rafts of plantain leaves that floated out into the current. Everyone came forward, everyone except Nneka. She stood at the edge of the gathering, her face shadowed, her body tense. When the chief priest called upon her, urging all in the village to give their offering, she shook her head. Her voice, low and heavy, carried across the silence. "I have nothing to give." The crowd gasped. To refuse the gods openly was unthinkable. The priest's face darkened. "The river feeds you, woman. The gods see you. What is it you withhold?" But Nneka did not answer. She turned and disappeared into the darkness. That was the first sign. In the days that followed, strange things began to happen. Fishermen returned with empty nets. The river, once generous, grew stingy and turbulent. Women washing their clothes found their garments swept away by sudden surges of water. One child nearly drowned when a playful splash turned into a violent pull from beneath the surface. The whispers grew louder. "Nneka has offended the gods," they said. "Her secret weighs upon the river like a stone." Still, no one dared confront her, until one night when a group of women followed her under the moonlight. They watched from the cover of trees as she knelt at the riverbank, her hands cupped around a small bundle wrapped in cloth. She whispered words too soft to catch, then gently set the bundle into the water. The river carried it away without resistance. The women trembled, unsure of what they had seen. Was it a charm, an offering, or something far darker? When the story spread the next morning, fear spread with it. The chief priest summoned the council and declared that the gods were stirring. "A secret lies in this woman's shadow," he proclaimed, "and until it is revealed, the river will not rest." Nneka's name was now spoken only in hushed tones. Mothers pulled their children away from her path. Men spat when she passed. But Nneka herself carried on as though nothing had changed. She fetched water. She lit her cooking fire. She gazed at the river with that same secretive stillness. as though she was waiting. The river, too, seemed to wait. And in its waiting, the tension grew unbearable. What was it Nneka had placed in the water that night? Why had she defied the gods when all others obeyed? The answers lingered just beneath the surface, like a shadow darting under the waves, visible for a moment, then gone. The villagers knew one thing: secrets never stay buried long in the eyes of the river. And whatever Nneka was hiding, it was only a matter of time before the gods themselves rose to claim it. Nneka's life blossomed in ways the villagers both admired and envied. With every offering she made to the river, her harvests flourished beyond compare. Yams grew larger, their skins unblemished. Her palm trees dripped with sweet wine. Even the goats she tethered multiplied quickly, each season gifting her with healthy offspring. People spoke of her as blessed, though not all their words carried kindness. Some whispered, "She walks with secrets," and others wondered if the river had marked her for something greater or darker. But the truth, known only to Nneka, lay in the haunting echo of that night by the water's edge. She remembered the scales glistening beneath the moon, the impossible glimmer of eyes that belonged neither to fish nor to man, and she remembered the voice. It had told her that prosperity would be hers, but only if she honored the river gods faithfully. That meant offerings, not just of fruits or cloth, but of something deeper, something not yet named. At first, she thought little of it. She gave what all villagers gave: calabashes of palm wine, kola nuts, woven mats, and cooked meals left on the riverbank. The waters lapped them up, and nothing seemed amiss. Yet, as seasons passed, she noticed something peculiar. The river no longer seemed satisfied. The currents shifted unnaturally during her offerings, pulling with a hunger that unsettled her. At night, she began to dream of shadows moving beneath the surface, pressing against her thoughts, with voices that whispered of debts unpaid. When she awoke, she found the gifts she had left washed back onto shore, half-eaten, as though rejected. The fear in her heart grew heavier, but so did her greed. She could not ignore the truth. Her wealth came from the river, and if the river turned against her, all she had built would vanish. Worse still, she might fall from the grace of her people and be scorned as one cursed. And then came the moment that would unearth her secret. One evening, when the sun had dipped low and painted the waters in fire, Nneka's younger sister, Uche, followed her to the riverbank. Uche was curious, lively, and far too bold for her own good. She had noticed Nneka's nightly disappearances and wanted to know the truth. From the shadows, she watched as Nneka knelt at the river's edge, chanting words in a tongue she did not know. Nneka drew a blade and let her blood drip into the current. A crimson thread carried swiftly away. Uche gasped too loudly, and Nneka whirled around. "You should not be here," she hissed, her face pale in the dimming light. "What are you doing?" Uche whispered, trembling. "Why are you bleeding into the river?" Nneka's silence was heavy, but the river spoke for her. The waters surged upward, licking at the shore as though reaching for the younger girl. The trees rattled, though no wind blew. Uche fled in terror, but not before she heard a low voice rise from the depths, murmuring her sister's name. From that day, nothing was the same. Uche withdrew from Nneka, her eyes full of unspoken questions. She avoided her sister's compound and whispered to others in the market of strange things she had seen. Nneka felt the ground beneath her shift. The river gods had begun to stir, and now another soul carried knowledge of her secret pact. Nneka's wealth became tainted. People looked at her with suspicion, and though they still traded with her, their voices lowered whenever she passed. But her fear of losing everything was far greater than her fear of being shunned. One night, trembling and desperate, she returned to the water's edge. "What do you want of me?" she cried into the rushing current. The answer came not in words, but in visions. The river rippled with pale light, and within its depths, she saw the faces of those she loved. Her father, her mother, Uche, each of them pale and still, floating like broken dolls in the current. Then the waters swelled with laughter, a deep and hollow sound that chilled her to her core. When the vision faded, she understood. The river gods demanded more than gifts of cloth, wine, or blood. They wanted life itself. Nneka stumbled backward, her heart pounding like a drum. Her mind screamed at her to refuse, to break the pact and run from the waters. But another voice, a quieter, crueler one, whispered inside her mind. If she refused, the river would not only take her wealth, but consume her family and all she loved. That was when the true weight of her secret began to take root. She could not confess to anyone, not even Uche, for who would believe her without damning her as cursed? The pact had grown beyond her control, and now the river gods stirred with hunger. Each ripple of the water seemed to mock her. Each breeze through the reeds whispered the same truth. She was no longer a servant of the river. She was its prisoner. And soon, the gods would demand their due. The night came alive with a sound that seemed to split the heavens. Thunder rolled as though the gods themselves were speaking, and lightning carved open the sky. Villagers ran from their huts, clutching their children, pointing toward the riverbank, where the waters swelled and surged unnaturally. And at the heart of it all was Nneka. Her feet were bare upon the wet sand, her wrapper clinging to her legs as the wind lashed at her hair. In her arms, wrapped tight against her chest, was the last of her hidden treasure, the charm she had stolen from the sacred shrine long ago. It was this relic, this forbidden object, that had amplified her wealth and beauty, and it was this very secret that now called down the river god's fury. The elders arrived, beating their walking sticks on the earth, chanting prayers to calm the restless waters. But the river did not listen. It rose, curling in waves that resembled giant arms, as though it sought to seize Nneka herself. "Child!" one elder cried, his voice trembling. "Return what is not yours, or the wrath of the waters will consume us all." But Nneka could not move. For years, she had told herself she deserved her good fortune. For years, she had silenced the guilt that gnawed at her heart, convincing herself that no harm would come from keeping the relic. But now, as the waves swelled higher, she felt her lies crumble like sand before a tide. The villagers gasped as a voice echoed across the river, deep, ancient, and commanding. "Nneka!" It was not a voice of man nor woman, but the voice of the river itself. The waters glowed faintly, forming the vague shape of a towering figure, its eyes burning like molten gold. "You have stolen from the sacred depths. You fed your vanity with what was not yours. Did you think the river would forget?" Nneka trembled, her knees weakening beneath her. She fell to the ground, the relic slipping from her grasp. It landed on the wet earth with a dull thud, its glow dimming as though shamed by its owner's defiance. I only wanted to be seen," Nneka stammered, her voice breaking. "All my life, I was nothing. Poor, invisible, mocked. When I found the shrine, I thought it was a blessing. I thought it was meant for me." The river's voice rumbled like an earthquake. "Blessings are given, not stolen. You took without honor. You built your life upon deception. And for this, the balance must be restored." A shriek rose among the villagers as the water surged forward, forming a whirlpool at Nneka's feet. She screamed, clawing at the sand, trying to pull herself back. But the current was alive, a living hand that coiled around her ankles, dragging her inch by inch toward the water's hungry mouth. "Please," she cried, "forgive me. I will return it all, Every jewel, every coin, every gift the relic gave me. Spare me." The river hesitated, its voice echoing like thunder again. Repentance is not found in words, but in sacrifice. The villagers watched in horror and awe, none daring to move forward. Even the bravest hunter dared not intervene, for all knew the river's judgment was final. The charm lay glowing faintly beside Nneka, pulsating as though mocking her plight. In desperation, Nneka seized the relic and held it aloft. Take it back," she screamed. She hurled it into the swirling waters, where it vanished without a trace. For a moment, silence fell. The whirlpool slowed, and Nneka gasped in relief. But then the river spoke again, its tone colder than death. "What you returned is only an object. What you owe is greater still." The waters surged once more, pulling her forward. Nneka's cries tore through the night, a mixture of regret and terror. She clawed at the sand until her nails bled, her eyes pleading with the villagers. But no one stepped forward. As she was dragged into the foaming waves, the last sound she heard was the chanting of the elders, their voices raised in a desperate prayer. The river closed over her with a hiss, swallowing her into its depths. The waters churned violently for a moment, then stilled, lying calm as if nothing had happened. Only her wrapper, torn and floating, remained upon the surface. The villagers stood in stunned silence. Mothers clutched their children tighter. Men stared at the river with wide eyes, unable to speak. They all knew they had witnessed something far greater than themselves, the unyielding judgment of the river gods. And in that silence, one truth hung heavy in the air. Nneka's secret had not only destroyed her, but reminded all who watched that the gods did not sleep, and no sin remained hidden forever. When the river swallowed Nneka whole, the night seemed to collapse into silence. The storm that had rattled the heavens only moments before stilled, as though the gods themselves had drawn a curtain across the chaos. The villagers stood rooted on the shore, their torches sputtering in the damp air. The only sign of what had happened was the strip of Nneka's wrapper drifting across the water's surface, then sinking quietly into the depths. The elders lowered their walking sticks, their chants fading into whispers. For a long moment, no one dared to speak. It was as if words themselves would anger the river again. Children clung to their mothers, and even the strongest hunters refused to meet one another's eyes. The river, calm now, reflected the moonlight with deceptive serenity, a reminder that beneath its glassy skin dwelled powers no mortal could tame. At last, Elder Boniface, his voice trembling with age and awe, broke the silence. "The river has judged. The debt has been taken." His words were meant to soothe, but instead, they deepened the chill that wrapped itself around the people. From that night, the village carried the weight of Nneka's story. Some whispered that they had seen her hand reaching from the waves at the last moment, begging for release. Others swore her cries still echoed in the rush of water against the rocks. And a few, those who had once envied her beauty and sudden wealth, now muttered that she had gotten what she deserved. But children asked questions their parents struggled to answer. Why did the gods hate her so? Will they take more of us if we make mistakes? And always, the elders shook their heads gravely. The river does not hate, it remembers, it restores what has been stolen. Weeks passed, and yet the air in the village never felt the same. Fishermen approached the water with trembling hands. Women avoided washing at the riverbank after dusk. At night, when the wind carried the sound of rushing water, people pulled their mats closer together, fearing they might hear Nneka's voice, woven into the current. One evening, as the village gathered to prepare offerings, Elder Boniface spoke again, his voice carrying the weight of finality. Let this be a lesson that no secret remains buried forever. The river's eyes are sharper than ours. We may envy, we may admire, we may gossip, but the gods see truth where men see only surface. And so, a ritual was born. Each year, at the start of the rainy season, the villagers cast small offerings, cowries, ground kola, woven cloth, into the river. Not as bribes, but as reminders to themselves, to live with honor, to resist envy, and never to take what was not theirs. The ceremony became known as the Night of the River's Judgment, and though no one spoke her name aloud, all knew the ritual existed because of Nneka. As for her memory, it lingered like mist above the waters. Some said her spirit still watched, her eyes peering from beneath the river's surface, waiting for others who carried secrets too heavy for their hearts. Some claimed to hear her songs in the distance, sweet at first, but bitter if one listened too long. Mothers warned their daughters not to envy, not to covet, and never to stray too close to the sacred shrines, lest they too be tempted into a bargain they could not repay. And yet, not all remembered her with scorn. There were those who saw her as a woman crushed by her own desires, a tragic figure, not just a thief. She only wanted to be seen, a few whispered in the quiet of night. She only wanted to matter. But whether pitied or despised, her fate remained the same. A caution carved into the hearts of her people. The river had claimed her, and in doing so, had claimed her story as its own. And so the tale of Nneka spread, traveling to other villages, retold by firelight and in moonlit gatherings. Each version different, but the lesson always the same. The gods do not sleep. What is stolen will one day be reclaimed. Even now, when the rains are heavy and the river rises with a restless hum, villagers say it is Nneka's spirit stirring in the depths, reminding them that every secret has its price. This tale reminds us, no matter how far we run, our choices follow us, and the river never forgets. But what do you think? If you had been standing on that riverbank, would you have intervened and begged the gods to spare her? Or believed she deserved her fate? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Right here on African Folktales TV.